Posey, and this is Growing My B2B Brand. And today I'm meeting with Ryan Squire. I've known him for about 14 years now, and he has been a great executive working in the media industry as well as in healthcare. And now he is working as a marketing executive. So today we're going to talk about building trust and how that spurs growth in B2B companies. So Ryan, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks, Cara, for having me.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk with you about, trust in companies. And can you tell me a little bit about why it's important to focus on human behavior and psychology in the workplace?
Sure. Yeah. So I thank you again for the opportunity, Cara. I think, what we're seeing right now is a kind of in a macro economy, macro universe is a deterioration of trust, and I think that's it's because we're in the middle of a pandemic that's separating people. There's a lot of politicization of all the different things and sides of healthcare of how to come out of a pandemic, the economy. And what that does is it tends to breed distrust. It's difficult. We knew each other back in the days when Twitter was really kind of coming to the forefront. And I was working in broadcast television. And at the time, broadcast and the newspaper, those were the ways that we received information. And there weren't a lot of different voices. There weren't a lot of places. And even back then, when I talked to people about new media and about how Twitter and social media were really going to change things, what we knew is that we were giving these tools to people, and it was allowing people to become publishers. And so, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, right? A lot of responsibility that comes with, telling the truth and being honest about what it is you're seeing and what you're saying. But that becomes very subjective, right? And it can really kind of start to separate people into camps, and that's, I think, what we're seeing. And so what's really important as leaders in our organizations is that we do everything we can to be transparent, to involve our people in conversations, and to build trust with our people, with the people that work with and around us, because ultimately we need those people to be building trust in our marketplace. We need them to be building trust with our customers or with our clients in the B2B world. And it's through that trust that we build human relationships. And I think, trust is really kind of three things. This is a theory, a study that I picked up from an organization called Focus 3, but their information is based all the way back to Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Covey talks about kind of the three parts of trust being character, doing what you say you're going to do. And, this is the trust we teach our kids, right? We tell you that if you make a promise, you keep a promise. And that's pretty straightforward, I think, for the most part. Do what you say you're going to do. And constantly teaching my teenagers that, right? You said you're going to get up at 10 o'clock. I'm going to help you get up at 10 o'clock if you don't get up at 10 o'clock, right? And oh, by the way, my parents would have told me 8 o'clock is too late to sleep in. So you're lucky. Because I feel like my dad as I say these things. Character is the first one, right? Do what you say you're going to do. Competency then is the next one. And this is where leadership really, I think, has an opportunity to build more trust, and where leaders aren't just people who have a title, but leadership can come from anywhere in an organization. And competency has to do with the ability to teach skills, to have mastery of something that you do, and then be able to teach somebody else how to do it and do it at an expert level. And so we're surrounded by people. We know people who are really good at their craft. What makes them really good is not just their own mastery, but then their ability to help others through their craft. And that is a trust builder. And then finally, connection. And connection is that personal kind of connection that we have with people. You can do what you say all day. You can be really good at your work, but if you don't talk to anybody, if you don't connect on a human level, you could be just a computer, right? And so humans need that personal interaction. So it's those kind of three things. And I really think that focusing on those three things create the bedrock that we need to be able to get the results we're looking for, to be able to get, whether it's, relationships we need to build a customer base, or the relationships we need to deepen, client interactions. I think it's all coming back to trust. It doesn't matter what industry you look at, whether it's financial services or healthcare or grocery, even media, especially media in some cases. There is a widening cavern, I think, of where people trust and distrust, and that, if you're a marketing leader, I think has got to be your focus, especially as we try and pull out of this pandemic and all the aftermath that's going to be a result.
Well, let me ask you a question because you really brought up something that, sparked something that is in my history and working on, thought leadership and expertise that um, the relationship that people are building or relationships, um, I can build a relationship of trust with you and you can develop a relationship with me. We have that trust together. But an organization does not own you and the trust that you build with a client or a customer. They can't necessarily mold you to be the person they want you to be. They have to really trust in you to be an emissary of the company.
That's right.
And, can you tell me a little bit about that in terms of, because I can understand, how as an individual, I project that and I build trust with others,
Sure.
but how does an organization build trust with me?
So, and there's a simple social psychology theory that comes into play here, Cara. It's called the theory of reciprocity, and reciprocity exists in every single one of us, and it's a very basic principle that says you feel compelled to return an emotion that someone gave to you. So if you give me a smile, I feel compelled through this theory of reciprocity to return a smile. Trust works the same way. If you put your trust in me, you ask me to do something, and then you give me the space to do it. I then need to do what I said I was going to do. I need to show that I can do it in a way that lives up to the expectations that we've mutually set. And then if you show a little bit of that personal connection or interaction in the meantime, I'm gonna feel compelled to return those same things. And so it starts with this concept of the theory of reciprocity. Tony Hsieh and his organization through Zappos wrote a book called Delivering Happiness, and it's all about how you have to build a culture, a team culture that is reflective of what you want your employees to be doing in terms of interactions with their customers. I think this is where healthcare has a huge opportunity, and we saw this through the work we did at Kindred, is focusing on online reviews, what people are saying about you, and kind of what the general um, sentiment is really important because it can give you some insight into how your people are delivering the services or the products that customers are buying from you. Having a little bit of that information then helps you understand what could we be doing differently or better. And oftentimes, what we could be doing differently or better is a reflection of what we're doing as a management team or as a leadership team or as a company inside our culture. So if communication shows up as one of the things that's really lacking between your employees and your customers, there's a pretty good chance that that is a lagging indicator that communication is also a problem between your leaders and managers and employees inside your organization. And so the very first thing you have to understand as an organization is, what is that culture? What is the culture what is the culture we want to create? Culture doesn't have to be something that just happens. It can be something that can be curated and built a lot like a greenhouse, like a garden. You don't always dictate what seeds come up and what seeds don't. But with culture, what happens is you control the behavior, right? As an organization, you can decide what behaviors will we permit and what behaviors won't we permit. The behaviors you permit become the feeders of your culture. It becomes this feedback loop, right? The more the behavior that you want to see is permitted and promoted, the more that behavior develops and reinforces your culture. And that's a leadership principle. That's something that leaders have to do. Similarly, then, not permitting behavior that doesn't reflect the culture you want is really important. And so as leaders, we have to be on the lookout for opportunities to coach and to limit behaviors that we don't like. Urban Meyer wrote a book, I don't know if you've read it, called Above the Line, and he had his BCD, blaming, complaining, defending, things that he wouldn't let his football players exhibit, right? Or they couldn't get on the field. That's an example of, like, let's clearly define what we won't go for, what we won't have in an organization, And then as an organization, let's commit to making sure that doesn't exist. You have to be intentional about these things. In the lack of intention, in the absence of intentionality, in the absence of a focus there, culture will be kind of is a byproduct of all the different people and personalities and their relationships. It will eventually show up, and then you're left with, do we like the culture or don't we like the culture? And then you have to make you have to make the same kind of changes that you would have had to make in the first place, right? What are we going to permit? What culture do we want? And what are we expecting from our employees? And then decide, what do those behaviors look like? And how do we reinforce those behaviors? So it's creating that behavioral reinforcement loop, the culture that we want, so that way that we're working with and interacting inside the organization can be reciprocated to our clients and to our customers, because ultimately that's what we're going for, is that reciprocity concept.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking about, the fact that we are really, because of the pandemic, we're engaged in a lot of remote work. Many of us are working remotely, and that's created a heavy reliance on technology. And it forces us into this situation and can erode the trust that we have.
Sure.
So, how do we change this moving forward?
Yeah, I think technology technology is meant to be an enabler, right? It's meant to do two things: either to greatly improve human interaction or to drastically reduce the reliance on human interaction. And I think that when we have a situation like this where we're forced into a work from home environment, where it's almost a work from home economy, if you will, I think that we rely on technology to enable some of that, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay, but I think, again, we look at a lot of the tools we're using, and they're not one size fits all, right? This Zoom call is fantastic for you and I to have a conversation, to record it, to be able to impart knowledge on other people. But this is not a fantastic way to teach, right? To teach a classroom of kids where you have some kids in the classroom literally in front of you, other kids on the Zoom call, and you're trying to interact with both. And that's very difficult to do, right? And the technology just wasn't developed to do that. And so I think where we see limitations in technology is really that we haven't developed tools to be specific for this, to do the two things: reduce reliance on human interaction, but also increase the effectiveness of the human interaction. And I think that is a place where we need to go. But I also think, I think companies and the customers that are working with companies are looking for digital tools to offload some of the work. We worked with a lot of clients in the financial services space, and for the first time, my parents, our grandparents, are using mobile apps to do banking, right? Instead of going into the branch location, because they know that they can't, that it's unsafe. And so never thought I'd see the day where my parents are doing mobile banking, but that's the case. And now it's on those banks to understand, okay, how do we also take these digital tools and develop relationships? And I think a lot of the financial tech startups have figured some of this out, right? I mean, Root Insurance is a great one. Like, we understand that the thing you hate about car insurance is that you have no idea why you have a certain rate. And so we'll let you drive around for a couple of weeks, and then we'll give you a rate based on how you drive. That feels more trustworthy. It feels like you want a relationship with me based on something I'm doing. It also helps me understand that how I drive should dictate what I pay, right? I think those are the kinds of interactions that help develop some of that trust. And as organizations and as leaders, we need to be looking for those opportunities. Mapping out, where are the relationships with our customers today? Where could they be improved and made more effective? And then oftentimes you find that there's a huge white space there, like Root did, right? And for that kind of insurtech concept.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and the idea of building trust in that way is really unique. One of the things you and I talked about recently, in terms of this current climate, is remote work, and not, remote work, and the fact that we have tons of meetings and we go to all of these Zoom sessions, meeting after meeting after meeting, and then we still have to do our work. And
Right.
so, how do we rethink the importance of meetings and how we come together? And then, how do we build upon these conversations that are in the hallway, but now we have to make them remote?
Yeah. So I think, we talked the other day, Cara. I think, this isn't a technology problem. Look, I go back 10 years to some work I was doing in healthcare, and we would spend 8 hours a day in meetings. We'd just go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, talking about the things we wanted to do. But then you'd get done with your day and you'd say, oh man, I have 4 hours worth of work to do based on all those meetings that happened today. So your 8 hour day becomes a 12 hour day. That doesn't change. When we translate that same model to Zoom, now you're on Zoom calls, 8 hours a day to try and get things done. I think the problem is we have to rethink the meeting structure and the reason we're having meetings in the first place. But then we have to realize that in person has some very important benefits, right? Versus at home or in a quiet place has some very important benefits. And then we need to design the workplace so that it's able to take advantage of both. One of the things that I was saying to you is that what's been probably most frustrating for me through the pandemic and all the Zoom calls is that there is no room for the serendipitous conversations that happen in the workplace, right? Where I'm sitting at my desk and somebody's sitting over here and I interrupt them because something comes into my brain, or they shout out an idea, or we're in a room on a whiteboard and somebody comes up with something. There is something about that energy of being in the room with a person. Walking, executive, half of the work that gets done in a C-suite, maybe not half, but a large portion of it is done through the interactions and the conversations as you get up from your desk and you walk down the hall, right? And so the Zoom culture, the Zoom culture in the workplace today just doesn't really help for that, right? There isn't an opportunity for those serendipitous conversations in the same way. And so that is something that I think we really still need the workplace for. At the same time, sitting in a room with 100 other people where everybody's talking all at once, and everybody's got their headphones on, but there's still just a general noise and busyness, is really difficult in the knowledge economy, where workers are trying to focus, get into a state of flow, and flow through really good work, right? I mean, when we're developing applications, the engineers and people building those applications and websites need focused time. They also need team time, but that focus time is where the code gets done and it gets done, accurately. And so the home environment is that what everybody's realized is that's a fantastic place. It's a fantastic environment to get into a deep state of flow and to really knock out some incredible work. And so that's why you continue to see, especially in the tech sector, a lot of the work is still getting done, amazingly quickly and in a fantastic quality, perspective. I think the trick is going to be, how do we design a workplace that leverages both of the strengths going forward? And I think that should be our goal and should be our focus as leaders, as we come back from this. How do we do that?
Yeah. So, one of the things I'm thinking about is you and I are both marketing executives. We work and have worked in the marketing space for a long time. So, how do marketing teams bring everything together? And, how do we layer in these digital tools and transformations as part of marketing?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's never been more important for marketing to really look at a leadership role inside these organizations, right? And I think you're seeing this when the pandemic hit. A lot of organizations turned to their CMOs and to their marketing teams and said, "Okay, y'all, it's time to really show us what you can do." And I think part of the reason for that is that marketing touches so many things, whether it's the research or design, the brand, the decisions around product and pricing and promotion, and I think all of those things have never been more relevant. But I think ultimately, and I go back to the first part of the conversation, Cara, I think that marketing is the organization that understands human behavior and understands the importance of building trust. And I think that marketing teams can look at themselves and say, hey, it's our job to socialize inside the organization. What is the culture we're trying to build? That's not necessarily what HR teams are designed to do, right? Marketers are designed to do that. They're designed to understand human behavior and to develop systems that leverage that behavior. So I think you have to look internally first, and we can start, with that culture piece. But then I think there has to be a focus on the analytics. There's got to be a focus on the data. And you're seeing a lot more of this. I mean, I think as you look at the marketing roles that exist today, every single one of them is talking about data and analytics and this whole term of growth marketing that spun out from social media and social marketing that really focuses on growing the brand, growing the presence, but utilizing smart tools, right, and tech stacks that work seamlessly to understand what is the human doing, what is the human on the other side of the company, the product or the service doing, understand in real time who they might be, both understand their identity, but then also get the permissions we need to be able to deliver the right experience, the right product, the right service, the right message at the right time. And I think that going forward, that's going to be, I mean, that is the work of the marketing teams, but this kind of vast array of I think talents that are needed is something that leaders really need to be aware of. It isn't enough to just go find people who have done marketing. You're going to need to find the data science people. You're going to need to find the behavioral science people. You're going to need to find people who understand communications, internal and external. And I think that as you're putting those teams together, building a team that isn't just a marketing team, but is cross-functional in its ability to interact with the whole organization, has probably never been more important.
Yeah, I think, it's been, an eye-opening experience to talk with you today. And I hope that everybody who's watching and listening has gained, some great insight into the importance of human behavior and psychology, and how it's transforming the workplace, really. So I want to thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your expertise. And, we hope to connect with you again soon.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you so much, and take care.